everyone, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video, I'm going to show you how to crochet our 9th washcloth of the month washcloth. Now, if you don't know what we have been doing, for the year of 2020, we did a washcloth of the month for our year-long crochet along. And it's hard to believe we're already on our 9th washcloth. Now this washcloth uses a very fun stitch pattern. It's called Kittens in a Row. And it's so much fun to do, and it's also really easy. It uses stacked shell stitches, and then we do these long double crochets in between on our first row when we change colors, and it looks like the little kitten paws. Isn't that so cute? I just loved it so much, I thought I have got to use that for one of our washcloth patterns. And it's super easy, and it's also a wonderful pattern to use for lots of different projects, like a hat, blanket, scarf, purse, bag, whatever you want to do. Once you learn this pattern, you are going to just love it. Now, you can find this crochet pattern on my blog, and as always, I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. To make your washcloth, you're going to need 4 or 5 or even 6 different colors of yarn. This one has some fun sort of Halloween colors with this kind of grayish purple, 2 shades of orange, and a whitish cream color. This one is all done in pastels, and you can see I used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors on this one, and just 1, 2, 3, 4 colors on this one. And so it's up to you. You must use at least 2 colors because you have to change colors so that your kitty will be noticed. If you don't change colors, that kitten in a row won't pop out like it does when you change colors. So you can use anywhere from 2 to 6 colors because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you might want to do your trim in a different color. So if you've got some leftover cotton yarns, that's a great stash buster as well to practice a new pattern. I'm going to use these colors. I've got a purple here called Amethyst. I've got a yellow here. I think this one's called Curry. And those two are I Love This Cotton. Then I came across this black one that's a little bit variegated. And this is a Premier yarn cotton. And then I'm going to use this orange cotton as well. And kind of see if I can give it a little bit more of a Halloween look. But remember, you can use any colors that you want to. We're going to be stitching today with our H hook. It's a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need your scissors and you'll need your needle because when we're changing colors, we're going to have to weave in those ends. I'm going to begin with my purple color called Amethyst. I'm going to begin with my slip knot, and I'm going to chain 35 chains. Now remember, you need to stitch this initial chain just a little bit loose, or the end of your washcloth will pucker up just a little bit. If you struggle with stitching your chains loose, you can always go up to an eye hook just to stitch that initial chain. I've stitched my 35 chains. I'm going to stitch a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. We never count that loop on our hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. Now we're going to stitch a double crochet in the next stitch. This gives us 3 double crochets at the beginning because our chain 3 counted as our first, and then we stitch 2 more. We're going to skip 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and then in the 4th chain, we're going to stitch our shell stitch, which is 2 double crochets, there's 1, 2. We're going to chain 1 and stitch 2 double crochets in that same chain. So 1 and 2. Now we're going to repeat this across. We're going to skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and stitch a shell stitch in the 4th chain. 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 double crochets. We'll repeat this across until we reach those last few stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've repeated those shell stitches across. Skip 3, and then in the 4th stitch, stitch 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2 double crochets, and repeat. And you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shell stitches. And that leaves those last 6 chains. We're going to skip the next 3 and stitch 1 double crochet in those last 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 double crochets, chain 3, then we have our 6 shell stitches, skip 3, and then 1 double crochet in the last 3, and then chain 3. And that's how row 1 should look. All right, let's do row 2. We're going to turn our work. Our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, and we're going to double crochet in the next 2. And we'll have those 3 double crochets at the beginning and end of each row. We're going to go to the chain 1 space of our shell stitch and stitch a shell stitch, which is 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Now we'll repeat this across in these next 5 shell stitches. Shell stitch in the chain 1 space of each of the shell stitches. And again, our shell stitch is 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2 double crochets. And we'll repeat that in each of these shell stitches. So I placed a shell stitch in each of the chain 1 spaces of the shell stitches, and that brings us to the end, and we're just going to stitch 1 double crochet in those last 3 double crochets. And again, you're going to have 6 shell stitches and 3 double crochets at the beginning and end of your row. We're going to chain 3 and turn. Now, one thing to remember in this pattern is that you need to do 3 rows of each color. If you change colors in the middle of those 3 rows, it messes up the look of the kittens that pop out at you in the pattern. Now for row 3, we're going to repeat what we did on row 2. The only difference is when we get to the end, we're not going to chain 3. So our chain 3 here counts as our first double crochet, and we'll double crochet in the next 2 double crochets. Then we'll go right to our chain 1 space and stitch a shell stitch of 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2 double crochets. There we go. And we'll repeat this across in these next 5 shells. and then finish with our 3 double crochets like we did on row 2. I completed row 3 exactly the same as row 2, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shells of 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet, and then we ended with 1 double crochet in each of the ends. Now, or each of the last 3 double crochets. Now we're going to cut our yarn because we're going to change colors, and I'm going to bring in this orange. And then we're going to chain 3. Remember, when you're changing colors, you want to do that chain 3 after the color change. And what I do is I take those 2 strands of yarn and I do what I call a little stay knot. It just helps it stay tidy. All right, so now I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to bring those yarns across because I'm going to stitch over them. And that's going to help it work in better when I come back in and weave in my ends. All right, so I'm going to stitch a double crochet in the next 2 double crochets. Our chain 3 counts as our first, and then I'm stitching 2 more. All right, so now I'm just going to move those tails of yarn out of the way. We've stitched those 3 double crochets in our new color. Now we're going to stitch what's called a long 2 double crochet cluster. All right, so we're going to yarn over. We're going to go down here. Here's our shell stitch here, and then the shell stitch here, and we're going to go in between, pull a loop up, yarn over, and go through the first 2 loops. Now we're going to yarn over, and we're going to do that again. We're going to go around, pull it up, go through the first 2 loops, yarn over, and go through all 3 loops. All right, and that's how we do the paw. All right, so now we're going to go to the chain 1 space and we're going to stitch a shell stitch just like we did before. 2 double crochets, chain 1, and 2 double crochets. All right, so we have 1 paw made here, and now we're going to make another one. Yarn over, go around, pull up a loop, yarn over, only go through the first 2. Yarn over, go around, pull up, yarn over, only go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through all 3 loops. So now our kitten has paws. All right. Let's repeat. 2 double crochets, chain 1 and 2 double crochets, which is our shell stitch in the next chain 1 space of the next shell stitch. And now we're going to repeat that long 2 double crochet cluster. And at first, that long 2 double crochet cluster will seem a little bit clumsy, but as you get going, you'll find it's really quite easy. See how that looks? So what you'll do is you'll continue to repeat the long 2 double crochet clusters. You'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 more. And then you'll repeat your shell stitches in your chain 1 spaces across. This is the way that row 4 should look. 3 double crochets. You'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of your long double crochet clusters, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of your shell stitches, and 3 double crochets on the end. Chain 3 and turn. And now what you're going to do for row 5 is you're going to repeat row 2. So our chain 3 counts as 1 double crochet, and then we'll double crochet in the next 2, 1 and 2. and then we'll stitch those shell stitches in each of the chain 1 spaces of the shell stitches. We won't be doing any paw stitches on this row. We're only stitching a shell stitch in each of the chain 1 spaces of the shell stitch. And we'll repeat that across just like we did on row 2. And so here's row 5, 3 double crochets, 1 shell stitch in each of the chain 1 spaces, and then ending with 1 double crochet in the last 3, chain 3 and turn. And for row 6, we're just going to repeat row 5. 1 double crochet in the next 2, and then a shell stitch in each of the chain 1 spaces of our shell stitches. And this is our 3rd row of this color, and so at the end of this row we're only going to chain 1. There we go. So for row 6, we're just going to repeat what we've been doing. Whoops, there we go. Sometimes the cotton can be a little splitty, but anywho, we're just repeating across. We did our 3 double crochets, and we're stitching 1 shell stitch in each of the chain 1 spaces, and then we'll stitch 1 double crochet in the last 3, and then we'll change colors. I've completed row 6, which is my 3rd color. I did not chain 3 because we're going to change colors again. I'm going to bring in this pretty yellow that's called Curry. We'll make that little stay knot that I like to do. It doesn't really do anything, it just holds it in place until I can get back and weave that in. We're going to chain 3 and turn. We're going to grab those tails of yarn. We're going to stitch our next 2 double crochets around those. 1 and 2. And then we'll just drop that out of the way. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to repeat row 4, row 5, and row 6. We're going to repeat that 3 more times. And you can change colors as often as you want, as long as you do 3 rows of the same color, because that's how you get the look of the kitten. And if you look down here, you can see this looks like the kitty's ears, although this one doesn't have any paws here, but this one will. Let me do a couple stitches and then I'll show you to show you how that works. All right, so I'm going to do my long double crochet cluster. Then I'll do my first shell stitch here, which is again 2 double crochets, chain 1 and double crochet, or chain 1 and 2 double crochets. And then I'll do that long double crochet cluster. All right, now let's look at that. See how that looks like a kitten? It looks like the kitten's ears here, and then down here are the kitten paws. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to repeat row 4, row 5, and row 6 3 more times. Make sure when you do your color changes, you stay with 3 rows of each color. I have completed those 3 additional repeats where we repeated rows 4, 5, and 6, changing colors. So we have our paws on the first row of each color change, and you can see how those kitty cats just pop right out. I think it's super cute. All right, so now we need to add our trim. And so what we're going to do is cut our yarn, and we're going to bring in our trim color. I'm just using this orange because I like it. There we go. I'm going to make that little stay knot, and then I'm going to bring my camera in a little closer so you can see what to do. So I've joined that color in, and I'm going to chain 1. We're going to turn our work, and we're going to place 1 single crochet in the first 3 stitches. Our chain 1 does not count as a stitch. Alright, so now we're again going to stitch a paw stitch. So we're going to do that long double crochet cluster that we've been doing for our paw stitches. Oops, got a little string there. There we go. Now we're going to chain 1, and we're going to single crochet in the chain 1 space, and then chain 1. Now we'll stitch another paw stitch or long double crochet cluster stitch, chain 1, single crochet in the chain 1 space of the next shell stitch, and chain 1. And what we're doing here is just making a nice solid row so that we can come around and stitch single crochets across. Chain 1, single crochet in the chain 1 space, and chain 1. So we'll continue working this across, stitching our long double crochet cluster, chain 1, single crochet in the chain 1 space, and chain 1, and repeat across this row. And you'll see how it makes it nice and flat and helps those little kitty ears pop right out. Alright, so we have one more set to do here. We chained 1, single crochet, chain 1, one more paw stitch, not really a paw stitch, long double crochet cluster. And then we'll single crochet in these 3 double crochets. 1, 2, there we go, and 3. And that's the way that last row should look. So the last thing we need to do is do our trim. And what we're going to do is just move around, evenly single crocheting, single crochets. All right, so the key to getting a nice even row of single crochets is to try to stitch in the stitches and not the holes. There is not a set amount of stitches that you need down the side. You just need to stitch them evenly and kind of use your eyes and see if they're too close or too far apart. So I've evenly stitched down the side of my washcloth. I'm at the corner, and you want to stitch 3 single crochets in that corner. and that's going to help it move smoothly around the corner. And then we'll stitch single crochets across the bottom. And the nice thing about this is where we did our initial chain, and so we can put our single crochets in each of those chains across. We started here and we evenly single crocheted all the way around all 4 sides, placing 3 single crochets in each of the corners. Then we joined back to our first single crochet where we started. Up here on the top, make sure you single crochet in each stitch and chain 1 space so that it's nice and even. And then the last thing we're going to do is just do 1 more row of single crochet in each single crochet around, so we have a nice sturdy edge to our washcloth. All right, so I joined up here, and I'm going to place a single crochet in each of the single crochets, working all the way around all 4 sides of my washcloth. And yes, I have a lot of ends to weave in. I have stitched that second row of single crochet all the way around my washcloth, and by adding that second row, it makes our washcloth just a little bit sturdier and helps it hold its shape. And isn't that cute how those kittens are just popping out at you? Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch. Cut our yarn. We'll take it to the back, grab that loop and pull it to the back. Gives us a much neater appearance on the front. Now, if we turn this over, we do have a little bit of weaving in to do. But because we did that little stay knot and then we went ahead and stitched over it a little bit, it's brought it in just a little bit, and it will give us a little bit easier of a time to weave those in. All right, and so what we need to do is take our needle, thread the end of that yarn on there, and the best way to get a really good weave in, and it's a little more difficult with cotton, but you need to go through stitches and through the fibers themselves and weave it back and forth, making sure that you stay within the color so that you don't have little pops of different colors coming through. And just keep weaving back and forth until you're satisfied that that's going to stay put. And like I said, it can be a little bit more tricky with cotton yarns. One thing I have found is once you wash a cotton item like a washcloth or dishcloth or something, that sizing comes off of it and it helps it to kind of puff up and become more absorbent, and those ends seem to just stay in a little bit better. Now I have some tidying up to do, and I bet you do too. So I've tidied my Kittens in a Row washcloth all up, got all my ends all weaved in, and now it's ready to be used. Although this is too cute to be used washing dishes, I think it's going to be a decoration on the table. It's so adorable. So here's the one we did together. Here's one of the tester ones. And then here is the one that I did with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different colors. And I think this would be super fun to make in lots of different colors, lots of different color variations, and for just about any person who loves kittens.